research. So
Aha.
Can I sit over there? Is it what the like the
But you're
links
all
you
right.
sent me, or-
It's a compilation.
It's just
a compilation of
compilation.
the links that I...
Right.
they're using to,
I've set it.
that Patrick's using
Good.
to take out when he's talking about the strategy development.
It all connects, William.
Was a GP in Newbury,
Yes.
was the first gypsy to dementia,
Whoa.
and is now chief officer of the CCG.
Good.
So a GP that's gone to the dark side.
Because the dogs, I thought you were going to say.
Well, he
Do you want to sit here, William?
Yes.
That's good. Shall we just introduce ourselves?
Yes.
Sue, as our glorious leader, do you want to just say what we'll go around?
Leader yet.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm Sue Frio, I'm careers advisor at the university. And,
got your jobs.
yes. it's a good job. It's a good job.
You'll be entering your busy period now then.
No,
No?
the busy period actually, surprisingly enough, is during the autumn term when a lot of the graduate recruiters are recruiting. And so there's, and also students who apply to placements. So, yes, so it's...
I thought it happened around about March, May time.
No. Lots of big graduate recruiters do start their recruitment very early, so as soon as students come into their final year, they need to be off and running, and because of the placements, they have to apply early as well.
Yes, I'm Mark Baldwin, and I'm a lecturer in social work in social and policy sciences, with an interest in, well, obviously social welfare and community work. So.
I'm Marian and Naidoo. I'm an honorary research fellow now in the Department for Health, not of health, and have been working on looking at how we can improve services for people with dementia with Shaun, and also been working with the William on a project, so out in the real world as well as still being here after many years.
Hello, I'm Shaun. I'm a dancing jungler.
Is that it?
That's it.
There we go. Go on, Willie.
Sums it up.
I'm William House, and I was a GP. I'm an honorary research fellow in the Department for Health. And I was dementia GP lead for BAMES for a couple of years. And I've looked after very many patients with dementia and their families. And I'm working with Shaun and
Marian.
Marian
Yes.
on a project in Keynsham, which is about building community. So it's all
Oh,
about...
right, and you're meeting with us in social and policy sciences.
Oh
aren't
yeah,
you?
perhaps I am. Yeah, well,
Week
Mark
after
Baldwin.
next.
Oh gosh, yes, I am. Yeah.
Links,
Yes,
that's
I
right.
am.
Yeah, that's
The
part of the reason why I
impressive
came.
Next week or the week after, yeah, on social networking.
Yes, that's right.
It's great. I'm Jack Whitehead. I worked in the Department of Education here from, 73 till 2009, and then I was visiting fellow for 3 years, and now I'm continuing through OMNIBUS, which I became a lifetime member of, which I'm really pleased about, to encourage the production of narratives by members of staff to show how they're influencing their own practice and the practice of others as they try to live their values as fully as possible. Is that clear? Because
Yeah, absolutely.
okay. So if you want to actually work with that, and you're working, say William comes to you and you want to develop that kind of narrative, we must have a chat, and it's the same with Sue as well. Okay.
I'm Marian. I've been here for a few years and continue to have some connections here.
Oh, that was really clear.
It's as clear as mine.
Yeah, it was. No,
But
it's
that's
a bit
all-
better than yours. Just, yeah.
But it's interesting, Mark, have you had any connections with Sonia Hutchinson as well?
We have placements with Sonia at
Yeah.
the Carers Network, absolutely. Yeah.
'Cause I think
I haven't seen Sonia personally for a while since I last had a student there, but yes, we do.
Because she was contributing towards the social work course, I think it was.
Yeah, she does. She does do a bit of teaching.
Yeah.
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 Like I say, takes our students on placement.
Yeah, we're going over to San Francisco with it. That's a group of us at the end of April and May, right?
We're going to San Francisco.
Yeah, it's called the Action Research Network of the Americas,
Right.
and it's the inaugural conference, and Sonia is giving a paper there.
Oh.
So again, there may be something we can share, you know.
Okay.
So today was just to continue a conversation with Marian, William and Shaun, which is trying to, if you like, get us up to date. And what we usually do, because the video will show some of this DVD, and then also part of this conversation, so that we can actually have a record, and we can then return to it in relation to the kind of intentions that we have. And we hold each other to account in the sense of living our values as fully as we can. So do you want to, either want to kick off, Marian, or is it Shaun with the DVD, or and then William?
I don't mind. Shall I introduce the project that we've been working on?
If you want.
Or watch the DVD first?
Just watch the DVD first, because the important thing really is to connect with what we've just talked about with William as well. And there are connections there,
Yeah.
because it's all part of the same thing.
Or they just...
And this is in...
This is Birmingham
This is
Solihull.
Birmingham.
Style Radio.
Prawn in the studio,
Hello.
and Shaun's going to be talking to us a little bit about dementia, what it is, where it's up to, and is there anything that will actually help. So I'm thinking that there's a lot of elderly people that live alone, or they just sit in front of the TV.
Really, no, to be quite honest. I would think that it's very trying, but I wouldn't know, you know, I wouldn't know I don't know anybody that's got dementia. I don't know anything about it really, to be quite honest.
It's mental illness, degenerative mental illness, is it? On par with Alzheimer's.
Yeah, dementia. Something in the head. If I said to you Alzheimer's, would you know what that is?
Yeah.
What's that?
And there is a stigma.
I don't think there is a stigma.
No, but it's just an illness which is becoming more common. I think it's becoming more common because it's more talked about. I think it's always been there.
Yeah.
It's always been there. It's just that it's more talked about now and generally recognised. It's like any form of illness, you don't talk about it. It's like basically the big word C, cancer. Basically, nobody talked about the big C in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. But basically now, it's not such. You know, talk about you can actually only talk about cancer, can't you?
You don't know anything about it before you get it.
No, that's true.
Right.
You didn't know either.
So once you get it, you start learning about it. And the trouble is, you've got to learn yourself. There's nobody to tell you this is going to happen, that's going to happen. You know, you can expect this. No, it's like you've got a big minefield and you've got to start plowing your way through it.
Get people to understand what is dementia. People don't know.
Or that they don't want to know.
Or don't want to know.
Did you know enough before it affected you? Did you know anything about it?
No.
No.
I did know about dementia, but I didn't know as much as I know now, obviously, you know.
But I couldn't recognize that he is having a difficulty, and my doctor, when I go to him, no answer. So,
is that because you are going on behalf of somebody else and there are issues around confidentiality, or you had your loved one with you?
I used to take him and I told the doctor that's what's happening.
So what did the doctor say to you when you was
He didn't, he said, okay, I will do this and do that. He was not sure about his difficulties.
Thinking about the kind of experience you've had with primary care, with GPs, with the health services, with social care, whether that's been a positive experience so far?
Not for me.
Not for you. Why?
I think it's when I first find that I got my dementia, and I got the impression that in Solihull that there was no people to help me and my family.
Negative attitude to people with dementia.
Yes. Who from?
Well, from everybody.
The general public.
General public, and also
know about it.
And also professional people. A lot of professional people don't even understand dementia.
So do you think it's the lack of understanding that makes it negative?
Yes.
So what can we do about that then?
Well, obviously more training needs to be done too.
For who? Professionals?
Professionals, more so than you know, the general public in general. You know, the general public, I mean, has got a negative attitude to it anyway. Most people wash it under the carpet, they hide it away, they don't want to know. You know, like our next door neighbour's got dementia, but his wife doesn't want anybody else to know that he's got it.
Why? Why do you think that is?
I don't know. She thinks that, you know, there's a stigma attached to.
Like it's a dirty word.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a dirty word?
I don't think so. I'm
No.
perfectly happy.
When I found out that my husband was getting strange, the first thing I noticed, he puts his shoes on the left foot. And then he started to say, I want to go to work. But I didn't know what he was doing. I went to the doctor, they take a scan, they said he had a brain tumor. And from there he couldn't walk, he was really slow, he doesn't speak properly, and very irritable. And I took care of him for 3 years.
I don't think the doctors, the GPs follow up.
They don't follow up.
I mean, they just leave us. I mean, I look after Iris, and nobody bothers. I don't get any help from anywhere.
So you have to go and look for that?
I would have to, yes.
Yeah.
I don't get any help at all. There's only the two of us, and it's a full-time job. Well, I think they could check to see how you're going. Do you need anything? Because I don't think anybody bothers, to be fair. I don't think anyone bothers.
Prayer is very good for your health. When you go to mass, say, read Holy Quran and read, pray, and you feel better. If you ill, when you go at home, you read namaz or Holy Quran and pray for God. God will help you. Please do go when it's like Islamic day or like pray or in Ramadan. They tell about Islam. I don't think they tell about health. I never been.
Okay. So
in our community,
they do.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. So some are beginning to. Do you think that's a good thing?
We are having exercise all the seniors every month. We meet together.
And you find that helpful?
Yeah. They are helping us to what exercise to do and how to get help and all everything.
They arrange or something so that should be in place, like when the community helps.
Yeah.
Obviously, obviously the main reason why they're not doing that is because of funding. So if they can get some sort of funding, they can have like community sessions for elderly, where obviously they get the exercise and the healthy eating, all the information that they need basically
in the community.
Yeah.
I think when it comes in dementia, in the Asian community, I think it's only about 2%. Listen. All right, your mom's got it in the
Listen, I tell you,
listen.
There's more than 2%.
No.
The problem is, right, we hide the facts. We hide them. Listen, I know for a fact, right? You know Mudi's dad, he had dementia.
Yeah.
Muda's mom had dementia. You know that? You see, on the medical
people.
No, you got it wrong. You got it wrong. You got it wrong.
I haven't got it wrong. You know, majority of the people, right, try to hide it. You know why? Because they say, oh look, she's got loopy. He's got loopy.
So they hide it.
They hide it. They don't know that there's some sort of, something happens to their brain, they have a stroke or something, that's why it happens. But this, oh look, oh, if I say that, right, then when I get all right, oh, they'll say his mum went mad, he's going mad as well.
When I first got diagnosed, there were no services at all. Nobody could go to. So I've picked it up as I've gone along, things like doing wills, making sure the mortgage is catered for.
How long ago was that?
It's 7 or 8 years.
7 or 8 years, right.
And I came under a psychologist at Solihull Hospital. Now the first thing I wanted to actually progress was what I call a one-stop shop. People who get diagnoses of dementia or they get a stroke or anything that's a head problem, the first thing they need to do is to go to one centre where you can find out what he means, what the prognosis is. Can you do anything to extend it? What the drugs are available? What do you need to do health-wise, will-wise, family-wise?
All that information.
The whole gamut. There should be in one centre. Things like council tax rebates, although it's a very small aspect of it, is just another. Things like the Warm Front scheme.
It may typically make a referral to one area, and they might have to make another referral into the other area. So I think that's a bit time consuming, making 2 referrals. Whereas if it was one referral into joined network, just one referral in to.
I'm there to fight the corner for the society, but there's the mental health trust, and then there's Solihull, and then there's nursing practitioners, and then there's communication people, and I'm not sure we've got that starting place, but I think there's a will. I believe there is a will, and it feels different this time. I'm not sure that people leave their agendas outside the door.
Professional people don't talk to you. They talk to whoever's with you. They think you don't know. So you don't exist. And this is what comes across more than is that you cease to exist as a person.
Sometimes you get so hungry. One night he decided to go to work, but he couldn't walk. But when they had taken him, he got up and walked. And he was going, and I closed the door. And he said, I'm going to kill you if you don't open the door. And I said, no, you can't kill me. And I'd calm him down, talk to him, and calm him down, and get him back into bed. And in the middle of the night, I woke up and he tied something around his head, around his face to kill himself, because he wants to go to work.
Breakfast, lunch and dinner.
Basics.
The basics. And to my mother. And I don't want it to happen to me.
Is that a fear that you've got? That you go into a care home and you fall into the basics? Breakfast, lunch, dinner?
It's a fear that I've got.
I don't think
it's a thing you've got to think about. It's going to happen. If your husband goes or if you go, it's going to happen to you.
That would be awful.
As Tony says, the ultimate end we all know is that going to be the end of the care home. And that is probably a great fear to many people.
Because for me, if my mum goes into hospital, that's me in hospital with her, because I shan't leave her side. And then we've been to 2 hospitals. We've been to the QE and we've been to Heartlands, and I can't fault their service, but I'm there dealing with it because I can't leave her. But what I want is a hospital.
Why can't you leave it?
Because they don't get fed.
But they'll walk away and leave her in the bed on her own.
Because they're not dementia.
No. And can you expect them with all the cuts that are going on?
I'm petrified of going in hospital.
Why are you petrified about going to hospital?
Why?
Yeah.
Well, when I was in the last time I had pneumonia, at first they put me in a room on my own. That was all right. They let me have a commode there. But when I was getting better and they put me on a ward, they wouldn't allow me to have a commode by the bed. Well, I'm that slow. I mean, I was walking a bit better then, wasn't I? But I was that slow to get out of bed, walk through the ward to get to the toilet. You might know what was happening. Well, that makes you feel dirty.
When my husband was sitting down, I went out and I buy bubble wraps. You know bubble wraps? Give it to him. And he stayed there and break it. And keep his brain occupied while I do my work. Or I will go out and I buy drawing books and give him and tell him to draw. And sometimes my grandchildren come around and we buy domino and he play domino with them because he used to do it when he was on his legs. So I give him some of what he used to do that he can come together to know what is going on. But I buy a lot of bubble wraps. Sometimes I sit down and burst it with him. And it's a joke for the both of us bursting bubble wraps, you know.
Pick up on some of them and it says that, yeah, we do dementia, but it's only, or they've got respite care, only one room. And it's only, and some of them, it's when somebody has died, that room becomes available until it's taken by a full-time person. So you can't go on holiday. How can you book a holiday like that?
When I started looking in February, I started ringing round, and then one of the nice ones that I found in Shirley, they said, we've got one respite room, and I said, oh, could you have a look when you've got availability? September. Oh, and it's £920 a week.
My natural vision of life entirely. Human being get bored. That's the way it goes. That is human. You can't explain why. Life is enigmatic. If you have a candle and you don't take care, the light goes off. Life is not to be wasted, like a packet of food. If the same old time, it becomes dull. Human being don't take it seriously. Cover it up. At all life, express yourself. You have to. Gives you character and makes it more interesting. People, listen, keep alert. This is human. From the bottom of my heart, humanity, it can be heaven, it can be hell. Express yourself.
My hopes are high, but my eyes can't believe what they see. Oh, give me something to believe. Give me something to believe. Oh, but there's too much mind corruption, too little remedy. Oh, that's how it seems to me. Yeah, we need a more
digging. Okay, that was a compilation of a whole set of videos that we took as part of a process of developing or helping the Birmingham and Solihull NHS develop a dementia strategy, because it didn't have one. It didn't have one for Birmingham, it did have one for Solihull, and they're very, very different places. Solihull is quite affluent, predominantly white. Birmingham is cosmopolitan and predominantly South Asian or Asian, but with Yemeni, Somalis, Irish and marginalised BME communities, which include the Irish actually.
And they really wanted to engage the community in defining what an improved service would look like, particularly from early recognition right the way through the whole process of living with dementia until good provision for end-of-life care. And it was a really humbling process, I think, being involved. They had labelled lots of groups as hard to reach, and actually, as you can see, they welcomed us with open arms, and we ate together, we sang together, we drank together.
What I suppose I'm really curious about is what Marian's doctorate focused on a passion for compassion, okay? And Marian used quite a few videos, including tapes of the Alzheimer's patients and carer. Now, what I've just seen, if we just took it in the sense of postdoctoral inquiry, it feels to me you've extended quite dramatically your own awareness of that sense of passion for compassion, because I haven't seen the different ethnic groupings and your coverage. I thought it was absolutely fantastic to see the very different, cultural backgrounds, and that sense that you're extending that notion of a passion for compassion seems to me to flow through this, again, very powerfully, but we haven't yet to get your narrative, do you know?
I know, and we are working on that, because it's really, the challenge is when you're undertaking a piece of work like that and you're fully immersed in it, and the people who are paying, they funded the piece of work, they want their report, and they're not really interested in what I'm learning, sadly. There is that, so you have to kind of do what you've got to do, first of all, and then quite often you get carried up in the next piece of work that you're doing, and just what we're trying to do is just stop and think about, okay, what was it about for us, in terms of
well, we know what it was about. What
we
we haven't done is written it down. We've started the process of writing it down. I mean, for example, we started the process of writing down based on some of the clips, based on some of the experiences. The Asian men talking about them hiding dementia, for example. Yeah. I mean, that for us, that was a very telling learning experience for us, because we actually spent weeks and weeks going to this grumpy old men's group and getting to know them first, because they weren't going to disclose, they weren't going to talk unless they felt that there was a relational dynamic that was based on mutual trust. So we spent weeks just developing that relationship.
So unless you're in there, and they can see you there and you're interested, then nothing's going to happen.
Unless they feel that you're authentic, yes. Absolutely.
And also, they didn't want to be filmed, they didn't want to talk first, and you had to develop the relationship, and then they weren't comfortable with the idea of being filmed. And then one night they just said, "Oh, turn the camera on, but you've got to sit with us to show." And I wasn't, and then we had to go through that process before I was invited to spend time with the women. And until then, we hadn't been able to access the older women's group as well. And we just had to wait for that moment to emerge and and they had to trust us. The challenge then, I think for me, that moment of where those people walked through the door in Birmingham City Football Club, committed to sit round many tables with GPs, with
key decision makers, with the people with the money, and feel that there was a point to them being there because they felt that they could contribute to the future shape. That was a very powerful moment.
It was, because we had to validate what we collected in the narratives. I mean, we collected some on video, we collected some in notes, some of them are quotes on the thing from genuine practitioners and acute practitioners who didn't want to be filmed or couldn't because of the laws that govern NHS and whistleblowing and everything else. They just wouldn't actually do that.
It was quite challenging
they
for
wouldn't
some
commit
staff,
themselves to that.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because
But isn't it unfortunate that you're saying that the funders didn't understand that kind of basic principle of social research, which is you've got to form relationships before people will tell you what you need to hear.
I think they understand it and they value it, but they don't normally have the time. When they're writing a dementia strategy, they go away and, because they're under pressure to produce it by the end of the week, and they'll then offer it out to consultation. But in my experience, not an awful lot changes in that. And this was an opportunity to turn that process on its head, to engage people in the process and listen and be mindful and respectful about what happens next. And despite...
And to celebrate. I mean, the end part of that video was about celebrating that life of
because
energy.
they talked about such challenging things and they gave so much that, you know, when you're looking at the video, the recordings, it can be, but there was a lot of laughter and there was a lot of energy and we had a lot of fun.
For people in hospital to hear somebody saying, I dread going to hospital, surely that must...
Well, it's when they all say, because they don't feed.
You know, Marian, because when you said they don't understand and value social research, as I understood it, and the implications of actually engaging in social research as a creative process. He said, no, they understand, but they're driven by short-term outcomes.
That's what I hear you saying.
In which case I don't think they do understand.
Well,
I don't conceptually, I don't think we could sit down with any of the people that invited us to do this and them not say, that's what we'd love to do.
They have different
The constraints that we have mean that we can't do it.
Sorry to interrupt. No, it's just that because William, you know, he's only got about 15 minutes left. Okay, and I'm just curious. Can we get this onto YouTube for a start? Is that possible?
The links can go because if you have a look, all the links are there. Okay? So you can put that in the body of the thing.
Okay, it's just that
the second one on there is password protected.
Okay.
What was it? Well, I fixed that.
Okay, that would be helpful because you see what we've now got just on the video. Shaun is really great, I think, in terms of the description face to face. When it comes to getting any kind of public account, right, that we can then share, it's pretty disastrous, right? That we haven't been able over about 10 years to even get, you know, where we got to today, but made public. And it's that I'd love to work on, you know, so we get that narrative of that passion for compassion, you know, like with the omnibus conversations. But William is also working in the Keynsham Action Network. And I think for the first time, William, you've got a video to share with us tomorrow, haven't you?
Yeah, I can't come tomorrow.
Okay. Perhaps the week after.
The week after, I will.
Would you like to just introduce what it is that you've been doing? Is that okay?
Yes. I mean, as I said, I was a GP, so I've been in this world for many years. And being a commissioning GP as well, and doing research in the area, and practicing and looking after families, and listening to hot dinner from a number of times I've heard that. So this resonates very strongly with me from my personal experience. My father and his family also has a very strong history of dementia, and so I've been a family member of dementia patients. Anyway, the work that we're doing, I got so frustrated working in the health service and not being able to escape from these constraints that have been mentioned briefly. The constraints mainly to do with imposed ways of doing things. That I concluded really that it might be much more productive to work with the public. I feel as a GP I've spent my life working primarily with the public, and fending off the hierarchy as best I could. It was becoming more and more and more difficult to do that. So when I retired, I decided to work directly with the public and try to, as it were, tackle the problems that GPs end up seeing and that hospitals have to deal with much further upstream by stimulating the community, a community, to be more health generating rather than illness generating. And there's lots about what goes on in society that is actually indirectly or directly illness generating, as you probably all kind of realise. So we are doing a version of community organising in Keynsham, taking a geographical town as a sort of test bed, really, for which it's the town that I've worked in for many years, so I've got lots of connections. A community organising type of approach through collaborations, including with Marian. I mean, I don't think I've done it very well, to be honest. I've just been having a conversation about that. You know, made lots of mistakes because fundamentally I'm a GP and I'm full of passion for changing things, but not a lot of experience at doing it. So put lots of wrong feet on the way, but nevertheless, the public are so easy to work with, I find, so open. You know, once you've made a relationship with people, they really want to help. They want things to be better. And they're not encumbered and constrained by contracts and gagging clauses and the demands, above all, demands of their profession, really, to behave in a certain way.
They haven't necessarily got agendas.
No, I mean, they've got agendas, but they're not the sort of agendas that get in the way. They're agendas that you can work with. You know, they want to have more fun in their lives. So we've gradually gathered together a community residents group who have emerged from the community, really, as people who want to make change happen and who need structure and leadership to help make that happen. And there are several things that we're doing ourselves to provide a more health-generating context in the town, primarily by helping people to join up, so improving the connectivity so that people know what's going on, so that it's much easier to meet people and to have conversations that generate social capital and so on. But by the same token, we're working with organisations to help them to join up, so that organisations are more collaborative rather than competitive. And then we're working with emergent ideas, so people in the community that come up with ideas for doing things to help enable them to make those things happen. And part of that is to work with the charity Regenerate, who actually go around doorsteps and have conversations with people about conversations that enable people to engage if they want to engage, so that there is a kind of slow trickle. I was going to say stream, it's not a stream, a trickle of people emerging from the community who want things to be different and are prepared to do something about it. So gradually it's coalescing. We've got an older people's group, we're holding a series of elders. I mention this because we're dealing with other age groups as well and different things, but this elders group is emerging by holding a series of meetings where we ask people what they care about in the town, what's important to them, what they think ought to be different, what might they do about it. And then, after a series of those, identify the people who are particularly enthusiastic to put time into making things different. Then, mixing them, the idea is to put them in a room with, or invite them, put them in a room, invite them to a room.
No, put them away.
I realise I've got it sitting next to me. Invite them to a room with 10 organisations that we've already recruited who work in Keynsham with older people, and then see how the agendas of the organisations match with the agendas of the people. We're getting inklings already, actually, that they don't match very well. And the agendas of the organisations are to get as many people on their books as possible, to do things for people as much as possible, because that's how they're paid. And the old people will want to do things for themselves, just have people help them, you know, point them in the right direction. And
people living with dementia are no different. They just need a different kind of support to do it.
Absolutely.
And that's what came across loud and clear.
Yeah.
But in Birmingham, culturally specific things
Yes.
as well, so that we're respectful of people's cultural and spiritual beliefs.
Keynsham is almost entirely
like Solihull. Yeah.
But that seems to suggest that the kind of statutory authorities are set up around illness and doing things for people,
yes,
rather than enabling people, and that goes back to your original point, doesn't it? That the danger of this kind of illness focus rather than a health service.
There is something to do also with the relationship between the concept of providing a service and entitlement.
Because one creates the other.
It's quite an unhealthy relationship, actually. And I think what's happening in Keynsham is counterintuitive to that. It's about trying to get groups to engage in a process of self-directed learning, I suppose, in so much as if you can actually engage in a process of that, then the rest of it will become much more sustainable, and it needn't necessarily rely on necessarily the provision of a service, or the provision of a service could be much more focused in terms of what it is that they're asking for.
But of course we're now in a context where it's not even about providing a service, it's about providing a product, isn't it?
Yes, well that's
going to be commissioned and sold, and money is going to be made out of it.
If we get that analysis, in the sense that is what is happening, external influences.
Is what's happening.
Yeah. Now we've got William, who I think, in terms of his values, is wanting to adopt a much more creative response, which is focused on something that this philosopher John White has just talked about in terms of leading a life that is personally flourishing and helping others to do the same. Now, it feels to me that feels very healthy. So what I'm hoping that we'll be able to work on with William is that narrative. With that analysis, where you could help to say, look, is this valid? You know, but then to get William's response in the community linked in with the narratives that you're producing, and to share that over the next few months. You know, that's what I would love to see that we could promote, you know, within these conversations. But it feels really important to get, first of all, that analysis is really central, but then each individual's account, which you're, I think, working on, aren't you?
I am.
You are? Yes.
I am working, and it's been quite a journey for me too, because doctors are terribly impositional, really. I mean, you know, there's a very powerful, professional, scientific, political agenda that's behind a consultation with any doctor. And it's constrained by ritual and by the demands of so many groups, conflicting demands, that it was becoming impossible to do.
Well, we were talking about that before, weren't we? In a sense, it's a profound imposition of a medical model which actually takes away your identity and replaces it with a pathology. And that's what you deal with, that's what the service revolves around. And out of that, you actually lose the humanity of just relating to people.
See, that's why we've never been able to get a story. That ending was fantastic, I thought, of your DVD. Because it communicated a wonderful, in my language of spirituality, although I don't have a religious base to it, but there was an energy there which was life-affirming, and there was humour. Now, I think that is coming out of the qualities that you bring in to what it is you're doing. But
Well, we'd say the opposite. We'd say that that exists already, and our job really is to be able to connect with that,
Yes.
which is what Keynsham Action Network is about. It's just connecting with that, really.
But it's that influence that you're helping to evoke. You know, so we need both the analysis that Mark was talking, but this is why I'm so keen to start to get the narratives, which I thought that ending was fabulous. You know, because it brought out so many differences culturally, but there was a humour which united and an energy which was linked. Not just your passion for compassion, but there was actually a life-affirming quality of hope. So I'm just hoping that we can focus in on these over the next few months. And Mark, what are you working on in terms of your own research area? What is
not a lot at the moment. The last thing I was engaged in was about well-being in a particular community in Swindon, as it happens, but it all fell horribly apart because of things that I won't go into now. It's long and complicated. So not a lot at the moment, but you know, I'm really interested in this, and from a whole range of different perspectives. You know, I have a huge interest in community development, a huge interest in well-being and wellness, and you know, the differences between the medical and the social model of health and illness. And a particular interest in older people as well. So I would be interested to see how this develops.
It's very, I mean, there are some very challenging things around how we go forward in Birmingham and Solihull. Around, you know, we now have everything set to be different, and it's like we can't afford to do the next bit. And that, from where they made a public commitment to the people in the room, it's like, oh, okay, how? Because that's almost it makes it worse than if you didn't start doing anything in the first place, because we've raised people's expectations, or they've raised them themselves, and know that they can connect and they can influence and they can shape something. So it's kind of, you know, on a bit of a balance ball at the moment, and we hope it will go forward. But even in the midst of that, even in the midst of, you know, finding these wonderful self-organising groups in pockets around inner city Birmingham, who were doing a fantastic job on very, very small amounts of resource, particularly supporting the BME communities. And then, you know, we talk about intelligent commissioning, and some intelligent commissioner decides to fund a huge charity that doesn't have anyone working from the BME community and didn't have the relationships that were there. And what happens then is that these small groups are set against each other, like you were saying around Keynsham, and because there's such small amounts of resource for them that they can't work together because they're competing for the same 2 and 6.
The word intelligence is used ironically, presumably.
It wasn't that.
I'll just get my tongue out my cheek. And that's the kind of frustrations, and that you think, well, why did you do that?
Could I just ask at the end, you know, of the with the voice about humanity, so yeah, with statements on the screen, like humanity. I'm just curious about whether, if almost like we all had a similar response to the music and the images, and then the voice about humanity, because I suppose I'm really fascinated by this idea that of bringing your insights into the academy, and to think of those values as being able to be used as explanatory principles. I mean, do I make sense there?
Well, you just have to leave your agendas elsewhere then when you do that. That's the problem.
You do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, don't give me that kind of look, because I know that kind of advice, okay? Because there are too many people we come across as being this, that and the other, and their identity is predicated on their specialist interest. It's a bit like working in a school and getting past the subject teachers, okay? And saying, well, I'm a subject specialist in maths, so what has humanity got to do with me?
Yeah.
Yeah. And in actual fact, it's got a lot to do with you.
Is it possible to take, like, with Sue may become the chair of Omnibus, and maybe in a few months that might happen. Now, it's just this idea that what are we doing? That's all Bath University staff. What are we doing to, if you like, enhance the flow of those values in relation to humanity. And it just feels that there's something in terms of our conversation that we can look at very carefully. Because I think you've shown us something, what William is doing, but I think you've shown us something very significant in that visual, and then the conversation, and then the ending.
Yeah, because we've tried playing, I mean, for me, the music is something that I think speaks on a different level. So finding, you know, we spent a lot of time finding something, and Paolo Nutini is much better at writing it than we are. And then also the woman who, because for me it's about tying those things together, that underpins certainly how I have been able to understand how I practice my values and what I do, and that's the arts-based stuff as well. So the lady who's talking the poem, she's somebody she's no longer with us, and she died I think about a year ago. But she was in end-of-life care in a care home, very uncommunicative, and worked with a poet. And that, you know, if you think that someone has no role to play in society and can actually, you know, working on one-to-one with someone with those skills, she can articulate a very clear message to humanity. Is wow.
Yeah.
You know,
Karen Hayes, is that?
No, it was. It's Suzanne Howard who works with John Killick. John Killick's the kind of and he's retired really, but Suzanne is going to take over from him. And
But you see the significance of that narrative you've just given. You see, we didn't have that as the backstory.
No, you had the product.
I was going to ask afterwards where that came from, because it was really powerful, wasn't it? And I now know it's even more powerful because you've told me who
absolutely,
what her circumstance was.
You know, the kind of things, you know, the conversations that we've had with GPs who are saying, still, there's no point making a diagnosis because I feel awful then, because there's nothing you can do.
But there are issues there, because actually in the early stages it's very difficult to make a diagnosis.
Yeah.
So you can try and make a diagnosis, and all you end up with is with uncertainty and anxiety.
But my response is, if somebody is concerned enough to come and talk to you about their memory or whatever it is, and even if it is too early to have a diagnosis, what people have said is if then they could be directed to someone where they can flourish.
Yes.
That's what. But what the GPs are saying is, I wouldn't know where to start. I don't know how to do that. And it's so easy to do, not for the GP, but for someone else to provide that and to give it.
What hat are you wearing now?
GP hat. GP commissioner hat. I tried to get that idea across, that you shouldn't have to wait for a diagnosis to release the resources.
Yeah.
Actually, there was just a brick wall.
Yeah. Well, because a diagnosis is a trigger to accessing those other things.
All becomes medicalised.
Yeah.
But now
it's the sort of thing that made me give up on.
Because as from Tuesday, from Monday on April Fool's Day, now we've got a different approach to commissioning.
Have we?
Well, yeah, I mean, there is now, because one of the issues that we took great care in asking people, because people keep saying people don't want a diagnosis of dementia. They don't want it. That's, for me, that's what's been talked about, you know, at a Department of Health level. And actually, we made a point of asking the question, and people said they don't want dementia. Nobody wants dementia. And that's the question that a lot of people have been asking, and it's quite a contrived question, because every single one of them said, if you know I've got it, then I want to know. And at what point is it? So we're not looking at...
So they don't want dementia, but they want a diagnosis if they've got it.
Yeah.
And this is to do with discrimination? Because if you get a diagnosis...
This is to do with cultural stigma.
Right.
Applied to whether or not, you know, you take into account as a healthcare professional. It's a stigma. It's the stigma.
Yeah, and also, whether, you know, the diagnosis being the trigger to help somebody access things that may help preserve some of their function.
It's also a death sentence.
It is but it is, life's a death sentence. This is the thing, you know, and that's a hard reality. If you look at the fact that in the Asian community in Birmingham, they are underdiagnosed comparatively to Solihull in terms of dementia, and that's partly because the stigma is expounded somewhat because it's not just a cultural stigma, yeah, it is an ideological one in a sense too, and you know, and the Asian GPs just don't recognise the diagnosis of a word that doesn't exist in original vocabulary anyway. You know, it's la la.
If you now want, and we're going to have to just finish, but to have my knowledge be a systemic influence. Okay, so you look at the qualities that you've been showing us today. It would seem to me that these are the ones we need to bring much more, if you like, fully into the cultural awareness. So yes, professionally they're needed, but there's also something that we could think about in terms of how do you extend the influence of this literally within the communities, so that your systemic influence with those values actually grows. You know, I'd love to talk about what.
Yes, because we were faced with a dilemma last week. We were I'm part of the Strategic Clinical Network for Dementia, and that's how, you know, that's the decision-making group about how care for people with dementia will be organised in the southwest. And they asked if we could bring some of the story of that research. And it was really, really interesting because there were two very GPs there. And what we were showing them was something that they don't really recognise in terms of research. You know, it's not a double-blind randomised controlled trial, therefore it is worthless. And the question was, well, so does that mean that we have to do all that again? Just tell us what the outcome was for there about what we need to do,
and then we can apply
and then we'll do that here. And there's also that bit, you know, about the danger of reflecting on your learning so that then somebody else doesn't need to do that process. And it's a really interesting question, I think, and how to address that, but also value.
I mean, it's stupid. It's a no-brainer. Tell us you're learning and we'll apply it down here. Or do we have to do it?
Do we have to talk to people
it's a stupid question. Of course they have to do it because it's a process. You know, they just want the product. And that is symptomatic of the kind of health and social care system and the education system that we're working within.
Yeah, but that is honestly why we need your narrative so badly. You know, we really do, because you have those insights and we need to share those. It's vital, it really is important.
I had a conversation on the phone with one of the research commissioners with the National Institute of Health Research. So the people that release the money and decide what research proposal is worthy of financial support by the National. So I said, well, one of the projects I've done was in GP surgeries, we put a novelist into a GP surgery and asked the novelist to write a vignette about every patient that came in, and she sat in the corner with patient's permission and everything. And then we showed those vignettes to the GPs in a focus group. And they were broken up by these things because they realised that the people that they were making diagnoses on and ticking their quaff boxes for were actually human beings. And one of them said, if this was a normal medical discussion, we'd be talking about diagnoses and protocols, but actually, we're talking about human beings here. And that was a kind of flash moment of insight that... Now, and then I said to this lady, look, this is the research we've been doing. And I sent her a copy of the paper. And she said, oh, well, that might be useful locally. Yeah. And that was the end of the conversation.
It's this whole
it's right. The only...
It doesn't have any validity except...
And that's
what we can be generalised.
We tried to
it can be generalised. I mean,
of course it can.
Of course it's generalised, you know.
But it needs to be repeated, like you say. It needs to be, you know, the questions need to be asked again. Yeah.
And we wanted to make sure that we could address that anyway because what we did with at the day in Birmingham City Football Club was played as we analysed the video and identified the emergent themes from that. And of course you reduce it because you have to edit it. And then we played it back to them, but with a wider audience, and said, this is what we saw from what we were telling you. Have we left anything out? Do you agree with us? Is there anything you want to challenge, anything you want to understand that's different, that we've missed something really, really significant? So we felt that we could say to people, that's how we have addressed that issue, because it's actually your stories, so you tell us if we've understood your stories. And that seems to have reassured
she spent the whole
people.
day engaged in a structured task, in 6 action learning sets, where they actually added to that research, didn't they?
Yeah, so we took the stuff about early signs and symptoms. What were people telling us, their experience of that? Had we left anything out? And then they worked with key decision makers across health and social care, and artists as well. We brought artists, people who they said were important, spiritual leaders, into the room and said, okay, what would a different story look like? Tell this story differently. Work together to make it look like something that you would actually be happier with.
So they produced 42 pages of supplementary information, and the health authority took it away and reduced it onto 2 sides of paper.
That last section where you're playing music and the words, it would have been nice to have the lyrics, but if you looked at some of those video clips that you had, if you gave an account of that passion for compassion, of within there, you can see those developing, because there, through that humour, those little bursts of humour, it actually developed within that context, interdependent rather than dependent. So you actually produce a product in the process. But that's missed completely.
Yeah, because
this is research not to find out, but actually make the change.
Yeah.
You've made the change. No, it may not continue unless you actually recognise where the change is.
Well, got the change. We're really, we're 15 minutes over. Yes. But thank you. And that's great to see you.
Yeah, no, it's really good.
Thank you.
That's fired me up.
Good.